This is an overview of how to add some simple visual design elements to your presentation. So first I want to review Death by PowerPoint, which is the video that we watched way back when we were in school. And here are a few of the main points from that video. Number one, the body text should be larger than the heading, as you can see here. Number two, the 6x6 rule with no more than 6 bullet points and no more than 6 words per bullet point. Number three, use a dark background and lighter text. Number four, stick to a simple design. Number five, the number of slides you have doesn't matter. The content on them does. And number six, exclude unnecessary information, including any pictures that don't serve a purpose in your presentation. So how can we take some of these ideas and still keep it simple, but also add elements of design? And here's a couple features that you can use to do just that. The first one is to try Google Explore. So I've used Google Explore to create this slide. You first want to start by just typing your content onto a regular slide template, and then click the Explore button in the bottom right corner. This would have to be done on a laptop. I don't believe that the Explore feature is available on an iPad, so just a note there about the kind of device you're using. As you can see here on my screen, there are lots of different options after you click the Explore button, and depending on the type of slide and the text that you have on it, you'll get different options. So here I can change it. Here I could change this picture and add my own picture instead. Here's a little bit of a visual. Same thing here with the picture. I personally like this basic template because it sticks with my dark background, light text, and if you notice, originally I had this text a little bit larger and I changed my font. So that's one example of how you can use Google Explore. Another thing that you could do is try a completely different platform. So I'm going to show you how to design with this platform called Canva. And after I demo that, I'll download it as a JPEG, and then I'll add this image to a blank slide, and I'll show you what that looks like next. Canva is a website, and it's also an app that's available. And as you can see, there are many different types of designs you can create in Canva, and I'm only going to be showing you the presentation design, but if you create your own account, you can try it for other things as well. I'm going to click on presentation. In Canva, I've clicked on presentation, and now I've entered this design screen, and there are lots of different templates that I could use to create my presentation, or I could do something from scratch. If you're new to this, I would recommend using one of the templates, and then once you learn more about it, you can start to create or modify things on your own. I would recommend, because we're going for simple design, to take a look at the simple presentations, and keep in mind that these are also not specifically created for schools, they're more for businesses, so you might have to still adjust some of the content because there are still going to be some extra visual design elements that you just don't need to include for the purpose of your presentation. I'm going to try this very basic travel presentation, and you can see here all of the different templates that are pre-created. And I'm going to pick just one of the basic templates. And you can see that I can type here, I can type the background behind it, and you can also change the colors. You can create custom colors if you want to. Again, I probably wouldn't choose something so bright. I'd probably go for basic colors, but you can see what it looks like with different options. And then to download it, there's a couple different options. When you download, it suggests that you use a PDF. My recommendation, unless you are creating your entire presentation in Canva and want to save the whole thing as a PDF, my recommendation would be that you use a JPEG instead. And then you can insert the JPEG onto a blank slide in Google Slides and create it as part of your presentation design. And I'll show you how to insert it onto a slide in the Google Slides presentation. Here I have inserted my template from Canva onto a blank slide in my presentation, and I did that by clicking Insert, Image, and uploading the image from my computer. So now I will show you how to use the Explore button to make it take up the full space and fit perfectly with your presentation. In the bottom right corner, you can click Explore, and I can now make this slide from Canva take up my entire page, so it looks like it fits in with all of my other slides. You can see that my message on this slide was also to leave intentional blank space, and I wanted to remind you that when you use any kind of design element, don't feel like you need to fill in the entire space. It is okay to have lots of blank space and to have more slides and less content on each slide. Another option is to add main points. So I put my numbers very large. I could have maybe 3 main points. I probably wouldn't add more than 3. And the main points focus your attention on those points, but they also separate your space so they don't overcrowd the slide, which is why you wouldn't want to have more than 2 or 3 on a slide. Another thing that I always suggest is to make your statistics and data powerful. You can do it with a template like this one, or you can just simply have your statistic very large with a plain black background and light text. The next thing that I did was to experiment a little bit with fonts. So if you noticed from the very beginning, my first slide, I have a more creative font and then a more basic font. And I actually have used that a little bit throughout the presentation. I tried not to overdo it, but you can see on a few of the slides I did change the font a little bit. So my general rule for this would be don't use more than 2 fonts and make sure you use them consistently. And again, I would absolutely not use more than 2 different experimental fonts. My next tip is to make your visuals large. So here I've inserted the How to Avoid Death by PowerPoint video, and it looks fine like this, but it's pretty small. I could open it in YouTube, but another option is to click the Explore button and just make it take up most of the slide. Another idea is to add one spot of color consistently throughout your slides, and I did also try to do this a few places. I have this grayish blue color that I use to emphasize the number. I also used it on this slide for the background, and I used it here for the numbers, and I used it here in my title. So you can see that I tried to incorporate it a little bit so it flows throughout the presentation, but it's also not overkill. I would recommend not using more than one color and also not using anything too bright or flashy because you don't want it to take away from you as the presenter. This is a slide that I created with Canva, so the color doesn't quite match up, but I could probably get that closer if I wanted to. A suggestion that I always have for you, whether you use Canva or Google Slides, is when you're using a quote, make it the focus of the page for emphasis. Make it large, make it take up most of the space. As you can see, there's also a little design feature here where it's also in the background. What other ideas do you have for creating a simple but visually pleasing design? The last thing that I want to cover is how will we use these ideas? And you are going to use the ideas to create a media presentation for your IWA. So normally we would have done your presentation for College Board, and it would have been scored using the College Board rubric. Because we are not submitting that presentation to College Board, we're going to do a very simple presentation, and it's going to be a media presentation that you are going to share with your classmates in a Schoology discussion. So the first thing that you are going to do is create a brief media presentation to summarize the main points of your IWA. You are going to use the design elements that are discussed here to make it both simple and also visually appealing. And finally, you can choose to add an audio recording, use Screencastify, like what I'm doing right now, or simply share your non-narrated slide deck in the discussion on Schoology so that your classmates can see what you've been up to and what you have done your research on. Hopefully these tips were helpful for you, and I'd love to hear your ideas and see how you will be incorporating these elements of design into your media presentation.